Sign the papers, Emily. My father's voice was cold as he slid the adoption documents across the hospital room table. I clutched my newborn daughter closer to my chest, breathing in her sweet scent, memorizing every detail of her perfect face. No, I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. She's my baby. I want to keep her. You're 17. My mother snapped, pacing the sterile hospital room like a caged animal. You can't raise a child. You'll ruin your life and hers. Sign the papers. My name is Emily Turner, and on September 15, 2003, my parents forced me to give up my newborn daughter. I was 17, scared, but determined to be a mother. They had other plans. The adoptive parents are waiting, Dad said, his voice eerily calm. They're a good Christian couple. They can give her everything you can't. I looked down at my daughter's sleeping face. She had my nose, her father's chin. Jake, her father, didn't even know she existed. My parents had shipped me off to my aunt's house the moment they discovered my pregnancy, spreading rumors about a study abroad program to cover up their shame. I can take care of her, I pleaded. I've been researching online. There are programs for teen moms. I can finish school, get a job. The sharp crack of my mother's hand against the bedside table made me jump. Enough. You think you can raise a child? You can barely take care of yourself. This isn't some doll you can play with when you feel like it. A soft knock at the door interrupted her tirade. The social worker entered, her face professionally neutral. Behind her stood a couple, the adoptive parents. The woman's eyes immediately fixed on my daughter, a look of desperate longing that made my stomach turn. Hello, Emily, the social worker said gently. Are you ready? She's ready, my father answered for me. He picked up the pen and held it out. Emily, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Think about what's best for the baby. My mother moved closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. If you don't sign, we'll have you declared unfit. Do you want that on your record? To be labeled an unfit mother before you're even 18? I looked at my daughter again, counting her tiny fingers, watching her peaceful breaths. Can I have a moment alone with her, please? The social worker nodded sympathetically, ushering everyone out. As soon as the door closed, I broke down, sobbing as I held my baby close. I'm so sorry, I whispered to her. I want you so much, but they won't let me keep you. They'll make sure I never see you again if I fight this. I memorized every detail. The small birthmark behind her left ear, the way her fingers curled around mine, the soft dark hair that curled slightly at the ends. I took in everything, knowing these moments would have to last a lifetime. When they came back in, I was numb. I watched my own hand sign the papers as if it belonged to someone else. The adoptive mother stepped forward eagerly, arms outstretched. Wait, I said, my voice breaking. Can I give her something? My mother started to object, but the social worker intervened. Of course you can. With trembling hands, I fastened my grandmother's locket around my daughter's tiny neck. Inside was a picture of me holding her, taken just hours after her birth, and a note with my name. My mother hadn't noticed me writing it during one of her coffee breaks. Something to remember me by, I whispered as I kissed her forehead one last time. The adoptive mother took her then, cooing softly. My daughter, no longer my daughter, didn't wake up. She just snuggled into the stranger's arms, unaware that her entire world had just changed. You'll thank us later, my mother said as we watched them leave. This is for the best. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The emptiness in my arms felt like a physical wound, a pain so deep I couldn't breathe. As soon as I was released from the hospital, my parents whisked me back home, determined to pretend none of this had ever happened. That night, alone in my room, I made myself a promise. This wasn't over. Somehow, someday, I would find my daughter again. I would explain everything. I would make sure she knew she was wanted, that giving her up wasn't my choice. I touched the empty spot on my neck where my grandmother's locket used to rest, praying it would somehow lead my daughter back to me one day. Life after giving up my baby was like walking through a fog. My parents were determined to get back to normal as quickly as possible. Within a week, I was back at school, expected to focus on college applications and SAT prep as if I hadn't just had my heart ripped out. Stop moping, Mom would say whenever she caught me looking at the only photo I'd managed to hide of my daughter. You need to focus on your future. This was just a bump in the road. A bump in the road, that's what they called my daughter. My father had already scrubbed any trace of her existence from our home, even repainting my room to give it a fresh start. but they couldn't erase my memories or my determination. Every night, I would write letters to her, tucking them away in a box under my floorboards. Letters explaining why I had to let her go, how much I loved her, how I thought about her every single day. Dear baby girl, one letter read, today you would be 3 months old. I wonder if you're sleeping through the night yet, if you've started smiling. I hope the locket is still with you. I hope someday you'll understand. I graduated high school with honors, just like my parents wanted. Went to college, just like they planned. But every decision I made was with one goal in mind: finding my daughter when she turned 18. I studied law, specializing in family rights and adoption. My parents were thrilled, thinking I'd finally moved on and found my calling. They had no idea I was learning everything I could about adoption records, rights, and reunion processes. 10 years after giving up my daughter, I was working at a prestigious law firm, handling adoption cases. The irony wasn't lost on me. I helped other mothers navigate the system I once felt so helpless against. That's when I met Sarah, another birth mother who had been forced to give up her child. Have you registered with the Adoption Reunion Registry? She asked during one of our conversations. I hadn't known such a thing existed. That night, I filled out every form I could find, registering my information on every possible database. I included details about the locket, hoping it might help my daughter find me if she ever went looking. My mother called around this time, excited about some charity gala. There's a lovely young doctor I want you to meet, she said. It's time you settled down, started a real family. I already have a family, I replied coldly. She'll be 11 now. The silence on the other end was deafening. Emily, Mom's voice turned sharp. We agreed never to discuss that incident. It's in the past. No, Mom. You and Dad agreed. I never did. I hung up, adding another letter to my box. Dear baby girl, your grandmother still pretends you don't exist. But I see you everywhere, in little girls playing at the park, in the lockets at jewelry stores, in every client who comes to me hoping to find their child. The years continued to pass. I threw myself into my work, building a reputation for helping birth parents and adoptees reconnect. Each reunion I facilitated felt like practice for my own someday. My parents eventually stopped trying to set me up, stopped pretending everything was perfect. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't move forward with my life. What they didn't realize was that I had moved forward, just not in the direction they'd planned. Every step I took was bringing me closer to the day I might find my daughter again. 15 years after signing those papers, I opened my own law firm specializing in adoption rights. The day I hung my shingle, I added another letter to my box. Dear baby girl, you're 15 now. The same age I was when I found out I was pregnant with you. I wondered if you look like me, if you have my laugh, if you ever wonder about the mother who gave you away. I wonder if you hate me. I wouldn't blame you if you did, but I hope someday I'll get to tell you my side of the story. My office became known as a place where birth parents could find hope and help. I kept a photo of my grandmother's locket on my desk, the twin of the one I'd given my daughter. Sometimes when clients asked about it, I'd share my story. How do you do this work? They'd ask, doesn't it hurt too much? Every adoption story I handle brings me one step closer to understanding my own, I'd tell them. And maybe, just maybe, they'll help me find my daughter someday. September 15th, 2023, exactly 20 years after I'd given up my daughter, I sat in my office, staring at the locket photo when my assistant buzzed through. Miss Turner, there's a young woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but there was something in her voice that made me pause. She's wearing a locket, just like the one in your photo. My heart stopped. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as a tall, dark-haired young woman walked into my office. She looked exactly like my high school photos, except for her chin, Jake's chin. Hi, she said softly, fingers clutching the familiar locket. My name is Grace Mitchell. I think you're my birth mother. I couldn't speak. 20 years of prepared speeches vanished from my mind. All I could do was stare at the daughter I'd been searching for my entire adult life. I found your note, she continued, opening the locket. The paper was worn, but my handwriting was still visible. And then I found your name on the adoption registry. I've been following your work for the past year, trying to work up the courage to come. Finally, I found my voice. Would you like to sit down? She did, perching nervously on the edge of the chair. My parents, my adoptive parents, they told me about you when I turned 18. They said you were very young, that you wanted a better life for me. That's not exactly true, I said, my voice breaking. I pulled open my desk drawer and took out the box of letters. I've written to you every year, hoping someday I could give these to you. They're the real story. Grace took the box with trembling hands. My whole life, I wondered if you ever thought about me. Every single day, I whispered. I never wanted to give you up. My parents, they didn't give me a choice. I told her everything. About being sent away during the pregnancy, about the threats to declare me unfit, about the years spent searching and hoping. She listened intently, occasionally wiping away tears. They're still the same, I finished. They still pretend it never happened. Last Christmas, Mom tried to set me up with a divorce lawyer, saying it was time I started a family. Grace managed a small smile. My adoptive parents are good people. They gave me a good life. But I always felt like something was missing. When I found your note, everything made sense. She hesitated, then asked, Do you know anything about my father? His name is Jake Collins, I said. He never knew about you. My parents made sure of that. Last I heard, he's a teacher in Oregon. I have your smile, Grace said suddenly. My adoptive mom always wondered where it came from. We talked for hours, sharing photos and stories. She was a medical student, following her dream of becoming a pediatrician. She loved art, just like I did at her age. She had 1,000 questions, and for the first time in 20 years, I could finally answer them. As evening approached, Grace stood to leave. My flight back to Boston is tomorrow morning, but could we maybe have dinner? There's so much more I want to know. I'd love that. I managed through tears. After she left, I called Sarah, the birth mother who first told me about the reunion registry. She found me, I said, still in disbelief. My baby found me. That night, I wrote one final letter. Dear Grace, no longer just baby girl. Today, after 20 years, I finally got to hold you again. You've grown into an amazing young woman, and while I can't take credit for that, my heart is full knowing you're happy and healthy. Your adoptive parents raised you well, and for that, I'm grateful. But they were wrong about one thing. Giving you up wasn't my choice, and it wasn't for the best. The best thing would have been having the chance to raise you myself, to see your first steps, hear your first words, kiss your scraped knees better. I can't change the past, but maybe we can build a future. A future where you know you were always wanted, always loved, always in my heart. Love, Mom, if you'll let me call myself that. As I sealed this final letter, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Your father and I heard through the grapevine that you had a visitor today. We need to talk. I looked at the photo Grace had given me before leaving, her medical school graduation picture, brilliant smile beaming at the camera. For the first time in 20 years, I felt completely at peace with my response. No, Mom, we don't.